if we could address you directly right now.
Everything comes full circle.
That's number one.
I don't tell him what questions to ask me.
There are a lot of people around town that have the same question.
Brush my teeth. I'm a good watch in the morning.
I can't confirm or deny.
You know, just keep going a little bit longer here, Mike. Keep going a little bit longer.
And radio. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome into ESPN 97.7 Newhouse Afternoon. Matt Lesnick alongside Izzy Sy, Brooke Kilgore. Good to be back, Brooke. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Yes, I was gone for a little stint in Baltimore, Maryland. That was a trip in and of itself. If we had an extra hour, we could totally talk about that. But Syracuse women's lacrosse came out with the win over Loyola, so it was a very good matchup.
There you go. And it's April Fool's saying, don't worry, we're not going to try and trick anyone. However, Jim Boeheim may or may not be coming out of retirement.
You said that with the straightest face. People may have believed you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope not. But we are going to talk some more college basketball. Starting off, of course, Syracuse. Last night we saw Peter Mastorovich entering the transfer portal, the fifth Orange player to enter the portal, guys.
Yeah, it's going to be a new look Orange team come next year, and this is something we kind of talked about over the last couple of weeks, that, you know, we're going to see a lot of guys enter the portal, you know, test the waters. You know, after a disappointing season, you know, you have to make big changes, and we're going to see that. Chris Bell's gone next year. Kyle Cuff's going to be gone. Elijah Moore as well. You know, he was supposed to, we all thought he was going to have a big role this year as a freshman, but it didn't pan out that way. Now he's going to be in the portal. So now the Orange are going to have to remake a lot of their roster, but the good news is that J.J. Starling and Donnie Freeman are both coming back next year. Those are your two most talented guys by far. Starling going to be in his senior year. Freeman's going to be in his sophomore year, coming off of a broken foot. So hopefully they can, you know, be, you know, the linchpins of this team. And now it's up to Coach Autry and the coaching staff to, you know, build a roster full of good role players, guards, bigs, all of that, so, you know, they can really maximize their duo.
But I have to ask you both, why would Donnie Freeman choose to stay another year when half of his class is practically gone?
Well, because he only played, 10 games or
Something
whatever,
like that, yeah.
It was, and, you know, he was supposed to be, coming into the season, he was projected as just outside of the lottery, you know, for the NBA draft. Obviously, injury tanked his stock, and this 2025 class is going to be very, very good. 2026 is going to be good as well, but, you know, Freeman coming back to college for another year, refine his game, come back from injury, get those reps that, you know, he probably wouldn't have gotten in the NBA because he would have been a late first, early second round pick. You know, really just rebuild his value. I can see why coming back. Obviously, the NIL is very good as well. So, you know, you can't really turn down that much money.
I mean, when you look at the recruiting class Syracuse is bringing in, you have Sadiq White and Kyan Anthony, two very good prospects, alongside, of course, with J.J. Starling announcing he's returning alongside Donnie Freeman. You have a chance for the Syracuse team to potentially make a good run. I mean, we'll see how the depth fills out throughout the offseason, but right now that's a good four and a good core to have.
Yeah, it really is. It could be a lot worse. But one thing that the Orange have to do, and we talked about that on our last show, was get a point guard and get a true big man. I feel like those are the two biggest needs. Lampkin's gone, and, you know, point guard hasn't really been, well, Judah Mintz the year before, he was very, very good. But this past year, we kind of put a Band-Aid on the position. You know, we tried JJ at point guard, but he's more of a natural two guard, in my opinion, because sometimes he seemed a little overwhelmed as a point guard, trying to create for himself, trying to create for others. You know, that's just a lot to have on his plate. So, you know, in the transfer portal, there are a lot of different guards right now that the Syracuse could look at. Abdul Bashir Jr., who just entered the portal from Monmouth. That's somebody that they could look at. Raquise Passmore from Kansas, he's into the transfer portal as well. There's a few guys that they can look at. They're probably not going to get the top guys like the RJ Luises. Donovan Dent, we saw, you know, UCLA landed him. So you're not going to get like a top guard, but, you know, getting someone with experience, someone, you know, who has a lot of upside, can see the floor, I feel like that's what Syracuse should be looking for in their floor general.
Well, it's interesting, too, like looking back at it, we saw Judah Mintz depart very quickly in his time at Syracuse University. Of course, he's with the 76ers and played a bit in their G League as well, so he's doing pretty well off, but a lot of people were curious to think, like, if Judah had stayed another year, would this team be in a different spot? And I think J.J. Starling is making the correct choice, waiting out another year, giving yourself that time, and if Adrian Autry's able to bring in more of these team players where it's not just reliant on JJ Starling to make these big plays. Donnie Freeman stepping up. Of course, those transfers and those potential 5-star recruits that we're bringing in as well, coming in and playing and making their mark. I'm curious to see if that's what would have happened for Judah Mintz if he had chosen to stay another year.
Well, it would have been interesting, because, obviously Judah was, the driving force behind that good year that Red had in his debut season. But, obviously having continuity in college basketball, we're seeing it with the Final Four teams. Yeah. Houston, one of the oldest teams in the country. Auburn has a unique blend of like veteran players and younger guys. Duke as well. They have like a lot of veteran guys. 5-star freshmen. Florida as well. So looking at those teams and how they were built, I feel like that could be a blueprint for Syracuse moving forward. You're gonna have a senior lead guard, which is very important in Starling. He's played a lot of college basketball. Maybe not high level NCAA tournament games, but experience is experience. Donnie Freeman as well, coming back as a sophomore. You're going to have to rely on 2 freshmen, it seems, in Kyan and Sadiq, so hopefully they can come along and, live up to their ratings. And hopefully, you get some junior, senior level transfer portal players that can, help the rotation.
And you mentioned the development aspect of it, and those are those best teams are the ones that seem to be the oldest. And you look at the Syracuse team this past year, you would have thought, you had some guys coming back. You thought Chris Bell was going to take that big step. Yeah. The one guy we were just talking about, obviously, is JJ Starling, who I would say, aside from the injuries, took that big step. He did. It's far and away the best player on this team this year. And to see what he can do next year, I think that there's a chance with the incoming recruiting class that this team has a chance to take a big step.
Yeah, it really, really does. And it's going to be a make or break year for Syracuse basketball. I know it's only going to be Coach Autry's 3rd year, but it's going to be very, very important that this team at least progresses. Maybe that's an NCAA tournament appearance. Maybe that's being in the mix for the ACC, something like that. But you have to take a step forward. You can't take another step back because that would mean being one of the worst teams in the country. Yeah. So you have to just go forward. That's the good thing about hitting rock bottom. You can only go up, and I expect Syracuse basketball to go up next year.
Definitely. Well, another big piece of news, Syracuse football just announced Toledo. They're adding a future football series for the 2026 season. This is the 4th time they'll have ever played the Toledo Rockets. So this is going to be a bit of an interesting matchup. And of course, we've heard from the 2026 season, Notre Dame, New Hampshire are also going to be visiting the Dome at some point. Clemson, Cal, Louisville, SMU, no Stanford, which I noticed in that potential projected schedule matchup. But it's going to be a little interesting. How do you guys feel about Toledo?
Toledo, they're a solid program. They're coming off an 8-5 year in the MAC. The MAC's pretty solid football, honestly. So it's not going to be action. Action's great. But it's not going to be a just a chalk W game for Syracuse. Toledo's a solid program, and getting them on your schedule, you can get like a solid non-conference win. I feel like that'll be important. But it seems like they're just trying to beef up their non-conference schedule over the next couple of years. Not with New Hampshire, but with Toledo. But I feel like this will be good for the Syracuse football program.
You look at some of the teams Toledo's playing this year, aside from your conference games. They start the season at Kentucky, and Washington State, while no longer a Power 4 team, they still made a bowl game last year. They played Syracuse in the bowl game. I think it's good to see a team like a mid-major going out trying to find this competition. Obviously, I know a lot of teams they do that, but it's good to see a team trying to build that prestige in that way.
Yeah, and we've seen Syracuse football try and go out and find opponents. We saw them try to do that with Colorado for the spring game. The NCAA doesn't like to have fun, so they decided to not have that spring game. But it's good to see that Fran Brown in the program is trying, go outside and look for these non-conference opportunities. Really not only sharpen their guys, but also, learn from them as well. Like see what they look like against other competition that's not in the ACC.
Well, we made mention of it too. Teams with longer histories and have been around for a really long time. Toledo's been around since 1917. They've had several top 25 finishes within that span of that. It's been a really long time for them, especially looking at it. So it's going to be good to see putting some of these younger guys, especially with the loss of several key seniors, going to the NFL draft. Congratulations to them. Excited to see where they end up over the summer. But it's going to be, really impactful for this young Fran Brown team to kind of see what a top historical program is going to look like. Exciting to see how that is definitely going to turn out. But and
Toledo has a long streak, I believe, of 500 or better.
Yeah,
records.
Something like that.
I want to say it's probably closer to like 15 years now. I think they've been 500 or better in each season. Someone will have to check that for me. But yeah, this is a very solid program for sure, and this is a good get for Syracuse.
Yeah, 15 straight seasons.
Oh, wow, I was right in the nose, damn.
Yeah. Good for you. Look at you on your game today.
Okay.
There you go. But we're going to take a quick break. Coming back, we're going to discuss our brackets and how they are, for the most part, I'd say completely busted. I'm still going strong, but I don't know about you guys.
I'm going strong.
But we'll talk.
No comment.
We'll talk a little bit about the Final Four when we come back on ESPN 97.7 Newhouse Afternoon. All right.
Buzz Williams is leaving Texas A&M.
For
Maryland.
I saw that.
Yeah, he was pushing hard for that job. Makes sense.
It's a good get this late in the cycle, though.
Yeah, it is a good get. Yeah, 6-year deal.
Yeah, no, that's. Look, I understand why Willard left, but the way he did it is so.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like, A, most of his guys were leaving anyway, and B, like, Maryland's not putting enough in their basketball.
No, not at all.
And Villanova has they put in
assets,
is basketball, so he can, like, rebuild that program.
Yeah.
I get what he was trying to say. Plus, he likes the Big East. He doesn't like the Big Ten.
Yeah. Seton Hall guy, yeah.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't like the Big Ten. So, because Big Ten is, like, mostly a football conference.
Yeah.
So, and then a school like Maryland, they'll put more into football than basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think should be the opposite, but
For a team with that history, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I feel like it's any kind of Power 4 program at this point is going to put the more money into football.
Yeah. I mean, it's the moneymaker, but...
Exactly.
Ooh, Jalen Sellers? He's in the portal.
He's in the portal?
We need him.
I saw Jersey's finest. Aaron Bradshaw's in the portal now.
I really could not care less.
Yeah, not after this season.
Him and Elliott have just hurt me in so many ways.
Yeah.
DJ too, but DJ's like decent, so it's fine. But
Yeah.
just not as good as he was.
Just totally fooled by this Instagram post for a second. Something crazy like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the owner came out yesterday and said they took a swing and a miss. So.
Shador Sanders, get ready to speak Cleveland.
Yeah. I don't know if they're going to take him.
I hope they do so the Giants can't.
Why?
I don't want Shador Sanders.
I mean, he's going to be behind, like, he's not even going to play year
I know,
one,
but I don't. I'd rather take a stab at next year with Arch Manning. I'd rather, like, even though we'll probably win like 6 games, I'd still rather take the chance. Unless,
yeah, I mean, you're starting Russ. Your like floor is going to be like 7 games.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
The only quarterback I'd want to take is Cam Ward.
Yeah, Tennessee's taking him.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's okay. Abdul Carter, get ready to speak.
It might be Hunter. I don't know.
I'm okay with either one at this point.
I think Abdul's going to go to Cleveland. I think they're going to take him.
Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett would be so...
Yeah, Abdul's going to be an all-pro in 2 years.
Oh, yeah. Art Rooney said that he's hearing Aaron Rodgers is headed their direction.
Yay?
I don't.
I mean, they have no choice. So
Yeah, it's him or nothing.
They have no choice. It's either Rudolph and Jalen Milroe or Rodgers and Rudolph. So.
Yeah.
Actually, no. I hope Jalen Milroe goes to Sean McVay, low key.
If he could, because McVay can develop anyone, so that's...
Yeah, if he goes to McVay, Milroe will be very, very good.
Yeah, no, that'd be a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, I really want it to happen. like Miami. Wouldn't be bad for him either.
ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
And welcome back to ESPN 97.7 Newhouse Afternoon. Brooke Kilgore, Izzy Sy. Final Four. Just a few days. 4 number 1 seeds.
Yeah, this was probably the chalkiest year of the NCAA tournament that I've seen in my lifetime. 4 number 1 seeds. I think that's the first time since 2008. And we got classic games with Kansas and Memphis, obviously, being the headliner there. But you can look at it one of two ways. Obviously, March Madness is all about the Cinderella team, finding, your FAUs, your Furmans, your St. Peters, your Fairleigh Dickinsons, stuff like that. But with the way college basketball is going, with the transfer portal and, high-level mid-major players transferring to bigger schools, we saw Danny Wolf go from Yale to Michigan. That's just one example. But we're seeing that a lot, and I don't think it's a bad thing for college basketball. I really don't, because you set up for, these great later round games. We saw Texas Tech and Arkansas, the game of the tournament. Yeah, probably the game of the tournament. And we saw Texas Tech and Florida. They went back and forth. Duke had a couple of good games. And you see these high level teams, go later and deeper into the tournament to set up these dream matchups. Now we have a chance to see either Duke and Florida in the national championship, or Auburn and Houston in the national championship, Auburn and Duke in the national championship. And those are the matchups that people want to see. And, I get it sucks that we don't have, some 12 seed from the South region, in the Final Four. But, seeing these powerhouse teams play each other, I feel like that could be good for the game and good for college basketball.
And to me, it feels like we didn't get this complaint. Like, the transfer portal's been a thing for a few years. We are only starting to hear this complaint now that it's 4 number 1 seeds.
Exactly. And now that NIL is going up, these bigger schools, have the resources to get and poach these players. But I really just don't think it's bad for the game at all, because now, we don't have to see, like we can see the best matchups possible. We can see Janai Broome versus Cooper Flagg, the two leading candidates for National Player of the Year. Walter Clayton Jr., who's been absolutely phenomenal this tournament for Florida. LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp. Like, you see all of these bigger names in college basketball on the biggest stage in the Final Four in San Antonio. Like, it sucks that we don't have, a Cinderella team, but we're seeing the elite teams play each other, and to me, that's what matters.
Something really interesting to point out, too, last time, like you were mentioning earlier, that all the top, the number 1 seeds in each division played each other in the Final Four was also played at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio.
Wow.
So, great statistic there.
Maybe just have the Final Four in San Antonio every year then.
Yeah, back in 2008, Kansas toppled Memphis, give Bill Self his first national title. We all kind of remember that matchup. But, guys, we have to talk about it. What did your brackets look like? Were we happy? Were we a little sad with them?
My national championship game is still intact.
So
I have Auburn and Duke in the national championship, Duke winning. But so that remains intact. My bracket wasn't terrible. I think I got 6 of the Elite 8 teams.
Okay.
I had Tennessee and Maryland in my Final Four. Unfortunately, they came up short. But at least I still have my national championship game pick intact. I'm still alive in my pool too, so that's
good for you. Good for you.
Mine is also still intact. I had Duke and Florida, I have Duke and Florida in my national championship. My other 2 were Michigan State and Tennessee. So,
just short. Yeah,
just short there. I also had 6 of 8 in the Elite 8. So I'm doing pretty good. I believe I'm number 1 in my pool. It's not for money. It's just for bragging rights. But right now I'm number 1. So I'm looking pretty good.
Yeah.
My only claim to fame this March Madness was I predicted the entirety of the East bracket correctly. I had virtually everything: Duke, Baylor, Oregon, Arizona, BYU, Wisconsin, all of those games. I'm a big Gonzaga fan, families from Spokane. You can't really let go of that.
Had them going far.
Yeah.
I had him going Final Four against Duke. Duke is probably the only team left I have that I correctly
If it makes you
predicted.
feel better, I was on the show saying how Gonzaga was underseeded and could make a run and beat Houston. Actually, and I think in one of my other entries that I didn't put in a pool. I had Gonzaga going far.
See, so the Gonzaga love is still there. Nothing too terrible.
I still think they were underseeded. It doesn't change how I feel.
Oh, no, definitely. I definitely agree. I did pick the Louisville upset, which I was really proud of. That was a big moment for me. I remember waking up, I had 100% correct. I was showing everyone, and then of course that was the day that everything fell apart.
It just wasn't the ACC's year.
It
really wasn't.
It really was not.
Outside of Duke, Matt and I were talking about it. Like, there was just nobody in the ACC that were just like, oh, they could make a deep run. Like, the ACC the last couple of years in college basketball just hasn't been that good.
No, it hasn't.
They've kind of fallen off a little bit this year. How many? 4 teams in the tournament.
Yeah.
And then one made it to the second weekend. And obviously that being Duke. But yeah, just not a great year for the ACC. Maybe next year they can bounce back. But yeah, just a rough year for the conference.
And one thing to point out, Quadir Copeland did amazing against Clemson and their run that they had out there. It was good to see a former Orange, and then we have
in the spotlight for a little bit. Yeah,
exactly.
And then we have Malik Brown.
Yeah, Malik Brown and Duke
was in the Final Four and has a chance to win a national championship. So, former Syracuse players at least can get some success.
So yeah, maybe some hope for the guys out there in the transfer portal. Maybe we'll be talking about it next year, them celebrating their Final Four run as well out there. But what is your championship game looking like?
Look, I have Duke and Auburn. I have Duke coming out on top. I think Cooper Flagg, I think he's just going to complete the generational year and, probably cement his legacy as probably the best freshman season we've seen in college basketball. I know Anthony Davis is up there with the Kentucky team, and he was dominant, but just Cooper Flagg just does it on both ends of the floor. Just the level of poise and IQ that he has. We can talk about the athleticism, we can talk about all those other things, but just the level of poise and IQ that he has for someone who's not even 19 years old yet is very, very impressive. And we saw it over the summer when he was giving it to the Olympic team in practices, and that to me was the sign, like, okay, this guy is going to be very, very good in the league for a long time. I know there are rumors about him going back to school next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I love Cam Boozer too, and I would love to play with Cam Boozer as well. But if the NBA is calling me, I'm going to the NBA.
Exactly.
And the teams that are tanking for you now are going to tank again for you next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Like they want the chance to have Cooper Flagg, and I think he's just got to take it.
Exactly, and he already had one injury scare earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just about to say.
You can't risk another one.
Just don't risk another one. Just go get your bag now. Play for the Wizards or the Jazz. That's just
have fun in Charlotte. Make the most of it.
I don't know if Charlotte's fun, but
it's a nice little city.
Yeah, I'm talking about the basketball team, but
yeah,
I think Duke's gonna win it all. I really, really do, and I think Flagg's gonna cement his legacy as the best Duke freshman ever, and probably the best freshman we've seen in college basketball.
I don't disagree with that take. I've also got Duke winning the national championship. I have them winning over Florida, though. I think Walter Clayton Jr. is gonna be able to get it done in the Final Four matchup. However, I do think again they run into the brick wall that is the Duke Blue Devils and Cooper Flagg. So
you have Florida over Auburn.
I do.
I was just going to say, your picks were correct for Final Four.
I had 2 of them right.
Two of them right, at least.
Duke
two of
Duke
them.
And Florida.
2 of them right,
Yeah.
yes.
No, Auburn, Auburn, Florida is going to be a good. I think Auburn gets the revenge there. I really do. Todd Pettiford has been absolutely sensational for Auburn, and Janai Broom's finally figuring it out. He's had 2 great games in a row, and you have guys like Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, Chad Baker-Mazzara, Dylan Cardwell. Auburn just has a lot of depth, and the thing with Florida and Auburn, they both have the guards and the bigs to combat each other. So I'm very, very intrigued with the matchups. Between Broom and Handlegloten and Cotton. You have Clayton versus Pettiford, Kelly, Jones. So that's going to be a lot to deal with. Elijah Martin on Florida as well. So it's going to be very, very good to see. And the SEC, successful year in the tournament, 14 teams, and you have 2 of them in the Final Four.
Exactly. What more can you ask for there?
Yeah, and one of them's going to be in the national championship. So it's great year for the SEC for sure.
Well, you both did a little bit better in terms of your brackets than mine. For my Final Four, I had Duke and Gonzaga, as we just mentioned, and then Michigan State and St. John's. I was on the St. John's train for a little bit. I was convinced.
I had them in my Elite Eight.
I had them in the Sweet 16 losing to Texas Tech. Yeah, and that was just a tough game for the Johnnies.
Yes, it was.
And RJ Luis now, their best player, Big East Player of the Year, is in the portal. So St. John's is going to look a lot different next year. They did get Bryce Hopkins though from Providence, which was a huge get for them. And maybe they'll be in the mix for a couple other players. Maybe they get a former Syracuse guy, Elijah Moore. Maybe he wants to go back to the city. Play for Rick Pitino. We'll see what happens. Which I think there's a good chance of that happening because St. John's is a great program. But yeah, they had a great year. Nothing to hang their heads about. But next year they'll come back.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
I would say so. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming back, the NFL approved some new rule changes today. We'll take a look at those. The MLB season is in full swing.
Go Mets.
Mets and Yankees. Mets coming off a 6-run win. We'll talk all about it. Stick with us on ESPN 97.7, Newhouse Afternoon.
Evan, Canty, and Michelle are...
Do we want to talk about torpedo bats? Like
we could. That honestly.
Because the Mariners just bought a bunch of them.
Isn't it legal though?
It is legal, but should it be?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I saw the
Brewers.
The Brewers. I saw the Brewers manager say it's not the wand, it's the magician.
Well, listen, man. The Brewers 36 runs in 3 games, bro. Like
at some point, that's the pitcher's fault.
Come on. Like it's not just the bats, gang. Like let's be real.
Well, no, that's what the manager said. His quote
and plus,
was,
Nestor Cortez started one of those games. He's going against a former team that knows all of his pitches, knows all of his tendencies. So obviously, it's going to be a rough start for him.
And also all the trick pitches.
Yeah,
that's not going to work anymore.
Exactly.
But
he really settled in, after giving up those 3 home runs and then gave up a 4th home run.
Yeah, exactly.
30 pitches later.
Exactly. Take him out at some point.
That the complaining part I don't understand. We can talk about whether or not it should be legal or whatever, but if you give up that many runs in 3 games, I'm sorry. I really don't want to hear from you.
That's on you. And I think I saw that some of the Twins players are using them. The Twins are 0-4. It's
I don't think it would be bad though. To keep them.
They're interesting.
They are interesting.
I heard them talking on the Mets broadcast how Lindor's he hasn't been using the torpedo bats per se, but he's been using the ones that have more weight towards the center.
Yeah.
And obviously they worked.
Yeah.
But obviously, you
get better contact on the ball.
And,
stuff like that. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. It'll probably put more back. It'll probably bring back more eyes on baseball, because people will see more, hits, home runs.
It's every couple of years they'll try to get something to boost offense.
Yeah.
And we saw they had the juice balls.
Yeah.
Obviously the steroid era, but
literally. I don't think it's a bad thing. If everybody can use them, it's just because it's the Yankees. People are complaining, but if anybody, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy, like I was saying, the Brewers manager, his exact quote was, "It's not always going to be. It's not about the wand. It's about the magician."
Yeah,
I like
Aaron Judge was hitting those home runs.
That's another thing too. This dude's hit 100,000 billion home runs over the last 8 years. It's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, we can finally talk about the Diamondbacks because the Yankees are taking them on. And
Corbin Burns makes his debut today. Yep.
Corbin Burns does make his debut today.
I'm so embarrassed about that Chicago Cubs series. Oh my God.
That's fine. 162 games for a reason.
Yeah, very true.
Kodai makes his debut today.
Yes, he does.
Very, very excited.
See what he does. I mean, I have absolutely no expectations. He didn't pitch in spring training.
Yeah. Peterson had a good start yesterday. He had a good start. Oh my God, I was watching.
I watched the whole game. He was really good.
9 strikeouts?
Yeah.
He
went 6 innings. I mean, he had a really good year last year. I'm excited.
If he builds on that, get Manaea back.
Yeah.
Senga, becomes that ace.
Clay Holmes was all right in his first start.
Okay. We knew he was gonna have to.
McGill looked really good.
Yeah, McGill.
However, I mean,
look,
we know
it's 5 good starts, then 5 bad ones, then 2 good ones, and 5 bad ones.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly
always the case. I'm not gonna. But hey, I'll take 3-4 good arms any day of the week.
Yeah.
3.5 because we'll see how. Yeah, Sandy's on the mound.
Yeah, it's his first start in
2 years. Was he? No.
Wait, no, did he not? Oh no, he pitched opening day.
He did.
Wait.
He did?
Did he?
Yeah, he did because they already had 5 games. So then this.
Yeah, he pitched opening.
So
day.
He did pitch opening day.
And he was good though.
He was good.
He only went 4 2/3. How many? 2 runs in a little less than 5 innings. I mean, coming back from Tommy John,
yeah, exactly.
You can't really expect.
You're not gonna exactly. Yeah, 2022 Sandy though.
That was he was so good that year.
Yeah, that was special. That was special stuff.
That was lightning in a bottle on that Marlins team.
Yeah.
Was that the team that made the playoffs?
I think yeah, it was. With Jazz and
No, they went 100.1. The next year
Watch
they made the
live
playoffs.
on
Yeah, that was 23.
Yeah, they fired the Jazz.
Tomorrow's Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
Welcome back into ESPN 97.7 Newhouse Afternoon. Matt Lesnick, Izzy Tsai, Brooke Kilgore. The NFL had approved some new rule changes today.
They did.
Some interesting ones, to say the least. Some weird, they're kind of additions, amendments to previous rule changes. But the first one we'll talk about, they made it so that in regular season now, both teams will have to have the ball in overtime.
I think that's good.
I like that.
I like
I'm
it.
for
I
it.
liked the postseason. Both teams possessed the ball. I think it was about time that they added that to the regular season as well, because you have to at least give the offense a chance, to score down the field if, the defense gives up a touchdown. I feel like that's just how fairness works, in my opinion. And I liked it for the playoffs. I like it for the regular season too. I think they made the right decision with that.
Do you guys see more games going to multiple overtimes though because of it, or longer overtime extended periods? Do you see that addition, like that Georgia Tech game where it went to 8 overtimes? Do you see any implications with that double possession rule now allowed?
You could see some longer overtimes, but you could also see some teams, if they give up a touchdown, they go down and score, going for 2 for the win. I think we could see a little bit more of that with the rule change, especially, that actually obviously depends on like the stakes of the game, where you are in the standings, things of that sort. But I think you're going to see a lot of teams, doing that, if they score, try and go for 2 and go for the win.
At the same time, I understand the point of it's more fair that both teams get to possess the ball. Do you feel that, I still do kind of feel like it is the defense's job to stop the ball?
It is the defense's job to stop the ball. Yes, I agree, but also it gives them a little, like, you want to see the offense at least have a chance to match.
Yes.
Too.
Right.
Like, I feel like that's important. Because we've seen, even before the rule change, we've seen so many games over the years where it's like the team didn't get the ball. What if this guy got the ball? What if this guy got the ball? So now there's no excuse, in my opinion. Like, now you get the ball. Now you have to go do your job. So it puts an onus on the offense as well. Like, you have to do your job. You have to go down and score to get us some points. I agree with you. It's a defense's job to stop. But now this puts, responsibility on the offense as well. They're not like going off scot-free, like, oh, we didn't get the ball. Now you have a chance to get the ball. So I feel like that's important.
Well, definitely agree. Another major rule that we're seeing in terms of changes is the touchback rule. They've moved it up to the 35-yard line. I still remember the days where we were at the 25 and everyone was completely fine with that. They moved it up to the 30-yard line last season, if I remember correctly, and now we're at the 35. Heck, we're just going to be at the 50 at some point at this rate.
I thought the kickoff rule change, the goal of it was to reduce like concussions, injuries and stuff like that. I believe concussions were down this year by a significant amount from the year before and the year before that. So obviously the rule worked. So I think they're trying, take that next step, and make sure it stays that way. I'm not a huge fan. Like, I'm more like, I guess now we can call it old school. Even though it was like 4 years ago. But I can see why the NFL wants to, change that rule, keep concussions down on kickoffs and stuff like that so they can keep going down. And, player safety is obviously, clearly at the top of their, priority list. So I don't hate the rule change.
Well, my question is, are the concussions down because the touchback rule has moved up, or is it because they're holding the linemen and the players back until the kickoff is caught?
Yeah, I was talking about the whole dynamic.
Oh, the whole
kickoff.
dynamic.
I was
okay,
talking
got
about
it.
the whole the whole thing. I should have been more specific.
No,
but,
totally fine.
But yeah, no, I'm talking about the whole rules. I like it. So, and moving up to 35, say what you want about it, but I don't think it's bad.
I never understood the complaints about the dynamic kickoff because yes, okay, it looks kind of weird, whatever.
It looks weird at first, but
one, it works, and two, I felt there was more kick returns last year.
More kick returns.
There were more kick returns. So if there's not, that's what people want to see, that it was doing that. The touchback to the 35, personally, I think it's too far up.
Yeah.
I think 30 was a good happy medium, and even then, it looks like we want to see the offense.
Yeah.
And maybe they're thinking, okay, you get better field position also. The offense is going to score more. People want to see an electric offense. People want to see teams score.
Exactly.
So I guess that's the thinking that you have, but I also like to see a team march down the field and earn it.
Yeah. You could see that, if your punter, downs it at the 5-yard line, so you could still have the chance to see that. But going back to the kickoff return thing, 332 more kickoffs this year as a result of the dynamic rule. Went up from about 22% to about 33%. Yep. So I think, that dynamic rule, it doesn't look, visually pleasing or anything, but it does produce. It's produced results, and, it's been successful. And, the NFL has done a good job with these rule changes. But one that I do want to talk about, the report came out today that they're tabling this for May, the tush-push ban. Oh. What do you guys think of that?
Personally,
and by the way, 16 owners have already signed off on it. You need 24 to make the rule change. So there's going to be a lot of lobbying over the next month or so.
Personally, I don't understand. Just try and you can't. Obviously, I understand it's an unstoppable thing, but it's the only team that's it's unstoppable for is the Eagles.
Yeah. I really don't understand.
And the guy, when I saw the person who was talking out about it was Sean McDermott, and he was saying it was a player safety thing. You've tried to run it so many times,
I'm pretty
and you
sure
haven't succeeded.
The Bills ran it a lot this year.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the 4th and inches. All they had to do was give it to Josh Allen, and that was their play. I don't really understand, all the negativity around the tush-push rule. I really don't. Is it an unstoppable play? Sure, and it's very hard to stop. But at the end of the day, it's all just about execution, and that's what Philly has shown us. They know how to execute the tush-push play, and it obviously helps if you have a bigger quarterback like Jalen Hurts who squats 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
But you just need to know how to execute a play like that, and teams can learn that over the next few years, and see like that. But I just don't think it should be banned altogether. I'm trying to think of a comparison for another sport, trying to ban an unstoppable play. But it's just slipping my mind right now. But I don't really think.
To me, it was like banning the shift in the MLB.
Yes.
I felt like it was a little unnecessary. I felt it was just because teams were doing it so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand it either.
Well, I would bring up your statement that you made earlier about overtime. If your defense can't handle taking a play like that or can't stop the play, that's on them. That's on your gameplay design. That's not on anything.
And the tush-push is such a small aspect of the game of football that I just don't think banning it is going to change anything drastically. I really don't. You have you can have special packages for against the tush-push. You put a couple extra linemen. Maybe you put in a couple of extra offensive linemen in on defense to stop it. I don't know, something like that. But I just think it's such a minuscule part of the game that banning it's not really going to do anything.
I agree, and look, I'm a Giants fan. I have to watch this twice a year.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's and every time I see 4th and 1, and I'm like, I know what's coming next. But at the same time, I have my team has the best defensive tackle, arguably in the NFL, and they can't stop it. So it's a matter of you need to find something that's gonna
stop it. You just have to find a way to adjust.
Exactly.
You have special packages for special players, and formations, things like that. So you just have to add that. I just think teams just need to do that. I think banning it's just kind of lazy in my opinion.
I agree. But we're moving on to baseball.
We're back.
We are in full swing. Mets and Yankees underway. Of course, the Yankees making headlines because of some rather stellar hitting.
Not because they're playing my Diamondbacks tonight, because of other.
Because of some other things, and something the Diamondbacks are going to run into is the torpedo bats.
Yeah, and the Milwaukee Brewers made it a very, very big point to complain on their way out of getting their butts kicked over the weekend. But I just think the torpedo bats, look, if it's legal, in any team can do it, I don't see the problem with it.
Changing your defense and making them more prepared to encounter that type
or
of
maybe
thing.
just don't give up 36 runs in the game.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's an idea, right? And Nestor Cortez started one of those games, and who did he play for last year? The Yankees. Who knows all of his 10-season pitches? The Yankees. So he's gonna give up. It's gonna be a rough start. I'm sorry. It's just his first time out against him. It's gonna be a rough start because they know all of his tendencies. They know what pitches he likes to do. They know where he likes to put his fastball, his slider, whatever. So it's obviously gonna be a rough start for him. And I just don't think the torpedo pads will be bad for the game. We were talking about how every few years it seems like the MLB tries to do something, put more eyes back on the game. And I think having torpedo bats will put more eyes back on the game because it allows for more entertainment value, allows for more home runs, allows for more hits, and that's what people want to see. Like for the casual fan, that's just what what sports tries to appeal to. So I don't think it's a bad idea. More contact on the ball, stuff like that. I don't think it'll be a bad idea for the MLB to keep the torpedo bats.
And the player that people were looking at was Aaron Judge.
Yeah, the guy who's hit 100-something home runs over the last probably close to 200-something over the last 3-4 years.
The guy hit 58 last year, 62 in 2022, and then he played 106 games in 2023, and hit 37.
Yeah. This is one of the best home run
hitters.
This is one of the best home run hitters in baseball. Yeah. Probably one of the best in Yankee history. Like he's going to have success.
He's hit 4 home runs over 3 games before. He's going to do it again in the future.
Yeah.
This isn't something new.
Yeah.
A 2,500 OPS is very impressive over 3 games.
Yes.
But let's not act like he hasn't done this his whole career, and he's not one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah. And, just going to the Yankee side of things for a little bit, this is what their offense is going to have to do for most of the season, because we don't know what their pitching staff is going to be looking like, over the course of the year. How's Carlos Rodon going to do? What version of him are you going to get? You have Garrett Cole's out for the season, probably out for most of next year as well, your best pitcher. So having your offense continuing to produce, I feel like it's going to be very, very important for them, and they're off to a great start. So, just keep continuing to do that. But again, there are 162 games for a reason. It's about 158 of them left. So, let's see how the Yankees do throughout the year, but they're off to a great start.
I'm curious to see how they do tonight against Corbin Burnes, making his debut on the mound for the Diamondbacks. Of course, the AZ Diamondbacks. I know nobody really wants to hear about Arizona sports, but I will give it to you. Of course, splitting that series against Chicago this past weekend. It was really unfortunate to see how that went, but Eugenio Suarez becoming the first Diamondback in history to score 4 home runs in 3 games. Really great milestone to see there, and he didn't have a torpedo bat, so I don't want to hear it from you guys at all. Going to be an exciting, matchup to see. Corbin Burnes, of course, doing a phenomenal job out there with the Orioles last season.
He was the best available pitcher in the offseason.
Yes, he was, and that was a really big sign. Nobody was predicting the Diamondbacks to get it. I remember waking up that morning and being shocked, stunned, and everyone was really surprised. He's coming in, at least fantasy rankings, top 9th ranked pitcher in the MLB at the moment. So hopefully going to be a good matchup, hopefully giving the Yankees a little bit of a run for their money. But, in terms of Yankees baseball, it's good to see some consistency. It's good to see some big hits. It's good to see New York baseball doing very well so far.
Speaking of New York baseball.
The other side of New York baseball, as we should say.
Another very important pitcher is making his debut today. Kodai Senga, had a rough year last year, only pitched 5 innings in the regular season, looked really bad in the playoffs. Let's just call it what it is. But he is making his debut against the Marlins today, and he's going to be a big part of the Mets pitching staff this year. And you and I were talking about it. Peterson had a great start yesterday. Yes. 9 strikeouts in 6 innings. So having him, go 5-6 innings consistently is very important. And having Senga, realize his ace potential. The Mets rotation has the potential to be sneaky good this year.
They do.
Once they get Manaea back.
We saw in the Astros series, they might have. It was the bats that was the problem, which looked like woke up yesterday. But in that Astros series, you only gave up 5 runs.
Yeah.
Or 6 runs.
Yeah.
And the problem was you scored 5.
Yeah.
But it looked like yesterday, it clicked again. Cal Quantrill was making his Marlins debut yesterday, so that might have had something to do with it. But you had
Pete
Alonso hit a grand slam. Starling Marte hit a home run.
Yeah.
Juan Soto looked good. He had a hit.
Jose Siri had a big double as well.
Jose Siri had a double. Vientos doubled.
Yeah.
The bats woke up yesterday, and if you can finally put those together, it's going to be a good season.
The Mets lineup is just too talented to, have score 5 runs over a 3-game series. And, that's probably not going to happen a lot this season because, again, you have Juan Soto who, makes the entire lineup better. You still have Lindor, Alonso, Vientos, Marte. Hopefully Siri can continue to play well as well. But
Alvarez is going to come back.
Alvarez will come back.
His backup hit a home run yesterday, actually. But
Torrens, yeah. So, hopefully you get Alvarez back in the next, 6 to 8 weeks or so. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. But, the Mets pitching is going to be very, very important. And, hopefully Senga can get off on the right foot against, Sandy, for the Marlins. He did not pitch all of last year. So, he'll be, coming off of Tommy John. So we'll see, how he does. He did pitch opening day. But, it'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
I agree, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. Of course, it's going to be a big one for the Mets. We don't know how it's going to go, but the Braves are 0-4, so that's always a good thing.
Exactly. That's all you need to hear.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming back, Syracuse women's lacrosse, plays tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll give you the full rundown, and on ESPN 97.7, Newhouse afternoon.
The 2020.
Did you do the sponsorship yet, or?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Type. People got to know about Drivers Village.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I was there like before break. I had to get my car serviced, and I was the dealership that I was in was in Drivers Village. I'm like, dang, this is really where it's at.
Yeah, I'd be like, you should ask for a discount.
I'm promoting your stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I promote your stuff like every week, bro. Oh, did this came out, or did we?
What is it?
The method for measuring first downs in the NFL will switch from chain gangs to camera-based technology in 2025.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Breaking news.
Finally.
Yeah. Can add that into the block.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Camera tech for first downs. Rip chain gang. That's interesting. And I feel like that's a long time coming.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like the NFL is the last one to get to not using like just your eyes, like
yeah, or index cards.
Oh my God, I forgot about the index cards. The Dallas Cowboys are still mad about that one.
Cowboys Raiders Sunday Night Football. Never forget.
That was
that was really bad.
That was terrible. Like
yeah, it's about time, honestly. Yeah. And yeah.
I think that's a good move though. Like it is like
it allows for less room for error for the officials. You know, allows them to have an extra pair of eyes on things. Like, you know, like
exactly.
It'll be good for the league.
Yeah.
Finally modernizing.
Exactly. Like it's about time.
Yeah. The chain crew will remain on the sidelines in a secondary capacity.
Okay, so basically
what does that mean?
They'll bring out they'll have it marked, I guess.
Yeah.
But like the official marker is gonna be.
Yeah, there will be the camera. I guess just like you have two sets. Okay, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. This is so funny. That's so funny. They deserve
the Sacramento
that.
A's.
They deserve that.
They really do. They really, really do.
I think it was Lawrence Butler in the press conference yesterday said like they got Oakland A's stuff and then he had to apologize.
I feel like they were dropping that all of spring training.
Yeah.
Just Oakland A's.
Yeah, because they have to get used to it.
And I think it's the fact that they literally told broadcasters and they told like personnel like you can't say Oakland.
And then they do.
Yeah, it's
honestly it's great. They deserve it.
They deserve it so much.
Are they like are they just?
They're the Athletics.
Yeah. Okay.
Not even taking a city name.
The A's in West Sacramento.
Like, come on.
That franchise is a joke. I'm sorry.
And the problem is they finally spent money this offseason and actually like I like their team.
Yeah. What are they on the year? Not 2.
They're 2 and 3. I think Lawrence Butler. They signed him to an extension. I love Lawrence Butler. He's so good.
Yeah. Sevy.
They brought in Sevy. They brought in Jeffrey Springs.
Yeah. 18-3 is kind of crazy. They did take 2 from. Actually, no, they split with the Mariners.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Cubs game was bad. But how did? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Tucker went 4 for 7.
Oh my God.
3 RBIs.
742 slugging percentage.
Yeah, Kelly hit for the cycle. Jeez.
ESPN Syracuse Sports Talk shows on QSportsTalk.com. Tomorrow's broadcasting stars today. Broadcasting live from the campus of Syracuse University. This is Newhouse Afternoon.
And welcome back into ESPN 97.7 Newhouse Afternoon. Matt Lesnick, Brooke Kilgore, Izzy Tsai. Syracuse lacrosse, both men's and women's, underway. Brooke, you want to take from here?
So let's talk about the team that's playing tomorrow night. Syracuse women's lacrosse just upgraded to number 6 in the Inside Lacrosse polls, so congratulations to them. Off a, I wouldn't say big win against Virginia the other night. Of course, they hosted the Who's the other day for senior night. Emma Ward hitting 300 career points.
Senior day W.
Senior day W. No.
That's always a big thing.
And it looked like it was going to be mostly a Syracuse game up until that fourth quarter. Syracuse won 0 draw controls that whole fourth quarter, going up against the 6th ranked draw controller in the country, Katie Calica.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a disappointment. Of course, the press conference did mention that after the game, just talking about that. I mean, Syracuse has really struggled on the draw control to gain possession, 135 all season. Katie Calica entered that game with 99 of her own. So that was definitely going to be a bit of a harsh topic for them. Of course, the Cavaliers entered with a 7-1 record when they controlled the draw, but unfortunately did not get that one on their end. Syracuse improved to take that 6th ranking overall in terms of inside lacrosse. So today they're playing against Yale. Going to be a big matchup. Yale's number 11 so far in the country. It's their final non-conference contest of the regular season, but Yale ranks 3rd in the nation in scoring defense. They allow around just under 8 goals a game. So that's going to be a bit of an intense matchup. What are you guys seeing from that?
So, obviously big win on senior day for Syracuse women's lacrosse. You had 8 different goal scorers in a 13-12 victory, which I think is very, very good. Obviously not relying on, one person. Obviously Emma Ward's, the lead attacker for this team, but, having, other, people step up, Emma Munchik, Annie Parker, all the gals, stepping up. But yeah, so I think, going up against a good defensive Yale team, that's going to be very, very important. You have to have, multiple different, goal scorers, multiple different women, attacking, from the get-go. I think that'll be very important for them.
I mean, you're coming off of 3 straight ranked wins.
Yeah.
It's going to be important to keep that going. Of course, you've got the momentum, and you go to New Haven now to take on Yale, so it'll be an important game to keep that momentum going. And of course, you've had these past 3 ranked wins are all within 2 scores.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 5th top 20 win too as well for the Orange.
And looking ahead a little bit, you have 3 ACC matchups left in the season. You have Cal, you have Virginia Tech, and you have Boston College, which will be at CBA, Christian Brothers Academy, here in Syracuse on April 17th. But making the Cal trip after the Yale game, that's going to be tough, making the cross-country trip in a 2-day span. So hopefully, the Orange, can take care of business at Yale and then go all the way to Berkeley, take care of business on another coast.
Yep.
So 4 games left in the season, before the NCAA tournament for this team.
Well, staying on the field, Syracuse men's lacrosse is now in 7th place overall in terms of the Inside Lacrosse poll as of today. So really big jump for them, for both teams actually. Good to see them jumping up 1 spot. Syracuse is taking on Notre Dame this Saturday at 2 p.m. What are we seeing from that game, guys?
Look, it's 5th ranked Notre Dame team. It's going to be a tough matchup for them. But Syracuse, they've found their stride, after a couple of, tough losses against Maryland and Harvard, earlier in the season. You beat Utah, you beat Johns Hopkins, you dominated Manhattan, you beat Colgate, you beat Virginia. So, you had these good wins on your schedule. And we were talking about it coming into the year. Men's lacrosse, their schedule was a gauntlet coming into the year, and it still is.
You have to take on the number 1 team in the nation,
and then
Cornell.
To end the season, you have 4 more ranked matchups, including the one against Notre Dame, but then you play number 1 Cornell, number 12 Duke, number 8 North Carolina. So it's going to be a tough end to the season, but this team is battle tested, and they have a lot of resiliency that comes from their captain Joey Spallina, their lead player, their lead dog. So that's what they have. But, they've been battle tested all year, and to end the season, going into postseason play, having that, level of toughness is very, very important when you're in those tougher postseason games. So I'm really expecting them to come out, and get the dub against Notre Dame. I really do.
Well, and it was great to see in that matchup against UVA the distribution of wealth. They did hold Joey Spallina to just 1 assist. That's really rare to see from him, especially just with the incredible season, both him and Hiltz hitting their 200th career point just last week. It was Michael Leo and Owen Hiltz who led the Orange against UVA with 3 goals apiece, and we're just seeing Sam English had 2 goals and 2 assists as well. Just a lot of distribution of wealth, and I feel like that's a good transition period. Of course, the 3rd quarter was a little hard. The Orange are definitely a come from behind team so far this season against ranked teams as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if they get that early start and if they can keep it, as well as if the Fighting Irish are going to lock down Spalino once again.
And just keeping pressure on goal. I feel like that's really important. They had 28 shots on goal in their last matchup against Virginia. So keeping them doing that against Notre Dame, I feel like will be important as well.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, Brooke, you said, speaking of assists, if you need some assistance with your car, this hour of Newhouse Afternoon is powered by Drivers Village Cicero. Go to dvoffers.com for more info.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough. I like that transition.
Thank you.
But before we go here, breaking news from the NFL. Camera technology for first downs. Rest in peace to the Chain Gang as the primary source for your first downs. We will be going to technology in the NFL now. What do you guys think of that?
Can call it old school finally, as you said earlier in the show.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, man,
it's about time, though.
Yeah,
that's
it really
one thing.
is.
I mean,
it really
we saw them using index cards one time to mark the spot. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It was about this needed to happen.
Yeah, it's about time, and it feels like the NFL is like the last league to
it feels
have
like
this,
it.
Something like this, and I think it's important that they do, and. Yeah, so we have no more, arguments of whether that was a first down, was he short, or was he, stuff like that. Just makes the process a lot quicker as well. Instead of having to bring the chains, measure the.
But you're not going to miss the dramatic flair of that. Them running out with the chains, stretching it out, trying to see if the football's even a quarter of an inch over.
I just want the game to keep going.
He's over it.
Yeah, I just want the game.
That's why
to keep
you like
going.
the kickoff.
I will
rule.
tell my kids about it though. The Chain Gang.
Oh yeah,
X card and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah. But yeah, no, a lot of changes in the NFL coming this year. Probably more on the way if the tush push gets banned. But we're at the point of the off season where rule changes are all we're going to talk about until NFL draft season, which is this month.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a lot of changes coming to the National Football League.
It's going to be fun to see. It really is. But that's all the time we have today for Newhouse Afternoon. Stick with us on ESPN Syracuse as the sports show with Cody Mack is up next. But for Newhouse Afternoon, I'm Matt Lesnick. For Brooke Kilgore and Izzy Tsai, have a great night. Have a great day, Syracuse. Excuse me. It is still 3 o'clock. Have a good one.
This is Orange Nation.
Woodpeckers.